Welcome, everybody, to our latest edition of Webinar Wednesdays here for the Iowa Heartland SCTE Chapter. Our topic today is the customer service experience, and we're really excited to have Aaryn Slafky here from Pivot. She's going to be doing the presentation today. We are excited to have her, and the topic is something that is obviously very important. I think it's a great end of the year topic because it allows us to all kind of refocus on what we are doing in our jobs and how that impacts the customer, because it really is all about the customer, even when the customer is a challenge. So we're going to be talking about that. And Aaryn is with Pivot, and they do a great job in training. And she'll talk to you a little bit about Pivot here in just a couple of minutes. I want to take an opportunity, though, first of all, to remind everybody who's on that we are recording this, and this will be replayed this afternoon. So we have people signed up for one, and we'll be replaying this morning's. So everybody be on your best behavior during this. If you have questions during the session, you can type them in the chat. You can raise your hand. You can unmute and say, hey, Curtis, shut up. I have a question. Whatever works best for you. Everybody's muted right now, except for me and Aaryn. But we'll be handling questions as they come up, or we'll have time at the end for additional questions as well. I want to remind everybody that is a member that memberships expire at the end of this year. And if you have not renewed your membership, please do so at your earliest convenience. I will let you know that the membership is $105 for 2023. I didn't know that until I logged in myself and renewed. Because I'd forgotten to renew, just like a lot of other people do. So we want to keep our membership levels up. Right now we have 53 members as part of the Iowa chapter, and we'd like to see that number go up over time. And particularly in 2023, it'd be nice to see those numbers up over 60 again, like they used to be. So if you are not have not renewed, please go ahead and do so here before the end of the year. Call it your own little Happy New Year gift. If you're on and you are not an SCTE member, we strongly encourage you to join. For your membership dues, you not only get access to things like this, but we do in-person trainings. And when we do an in-person training, there is usually a cost. Webinars have been free. The in-person trainings, there will be a cost. However, if you're a member, that cost is less. So you're going to save a little money on that. In many cases, if not all cases, your company will reimburse you for your membership. And so if you want to become a member, talk to your supervisor, say, hey, if I join SCTE, will you pay me back? If your supervisor says no, call me because I need to talk to them. And if they say yes, then you join and they pay you back your membership fee and you get to be part of our little group here. So that's the first reminder I wanted to have. Second thing I want to talk about is what's coming up, as we have additional training, one more training yet this year, this calendar year. It is called, well, here we are for today. I'm at our website, by the way. So anything you wanted to know about our trainings coming up, go to Iowa Heartland SCTE.com. Click this events and training menu item here, and you come to this page we're showing. Here's today's training. Our next training, which is next Wednesday, is basic PON or passive optical network design. I'm pretty excited about that one. We've actually got quite a few people signed up for that. I think the topic is obviously very good for this time of year and this type of the environment we're in. And so Justin Quinn from Newcom Technologies, they're an engineering firm based here in Iowa that have done work for a number of providers in the state of Iowa. He's going to be going through all the ins and outs of PON design, all the considerations that an engineering firm does to take into account in order to design a fiber network. So that's next Wednesday. Like usually, we're doing two sessions, 8:30 a.m. or 1 p.m. Should last about 2 hours. And go to the website. Here's the registration. So easy, just so easy. The next thing that we have definitely scheduled, we have our 2023 vendor day. And I would add a little asterisk there because it looks like we're going to be doing cable games at that same day. We'll be at the Stony Creek Hotel and Conference Center in Johnston on March 23rd. We'll have our vendor day in the morning, and then cable games in the afternoon. Vendor registration is up and running. So if any of you are vendors and you want to have a table at our vendor day, or you'd like to sponsor the day, you can go online and get to that. National is handling the registration, but the link is right here to take you to that. We'll also be putting up a link here soon that will allow people to register if they want to participate in the games themselves. So be watching that, and that's coming up, and that'll be the first training. Well, it'll be the first thing that we've nailed down. There are other trainings that we're going to have in 2023, but that's the first one that we have nailed down. So everybody, it's Iowa Heartland SCTE.org. You can see the URL right up here. If you go there, that's where the magic happens. And that's where we post everything as we develop them. All right. Tired of listening to myself. You're tired of listening to me. I'd love to hand it over to Aaryn now, who's going to talk to us about the customer service experience. Aaryn, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Curtis. I'm not tired of hearing your voice. I think you have a radio voice, actually. So
yeah,
it's a nice one.
I do actually. It's my that was my first profession.
Nice.
I'm a recovering broadcaster. Let's put it that way.
Well, glad to be here today. Thank you all for making this work as far as the reschedule, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on when you're consuming this. For those who are live, feel free to, chat a question, or as Curtis mentioned, use the raise the hand. As I get going here, if I miss that, just speak up and stop me. But a little bit, so what we're going to talk about today is customer experience, which goes beyond customer service. To me, customer service is a role, it's a function within the company, whereas customer experience, as we'll get into a whole definition about that here in a moment. But before we go any further, let me just tell you who I am, so you know that I know a thing or two about what I'm about to talk about. But I'm Aaryn Slafky. I'm the Vice President of Customer Experience for Pivot. We are the leading marketing and CX agency for kind of the rural broadband industry tier. Many of us come from that background. Many of us have worked at either municipalities or cooperatives or family-owned companies. I worked for NTCA for a number of years on the communications marketing side before moving south, getting out of the rat race of DC. Washington, D.C., which I loved, but when it came time to start a family, I wanted something a little more like where I was raised in northern Michigan. And so we moved south to North Carolina, where I went to work for a cooperative, a broadband telecom cooperative, doing sales, customer service, marketing, even editing programs for our local TV channel that we started while I was there, whatever hat I needed to wear. Before joining Pivot 9 years ago on the marketing side. But then we had been doing quite a bit on customer experience for a number of years, training and call coaching and research related to customer experience. And we decided in 2020, not knowing that the pandemic was looming, decided to kind of pull it all together. And so it's been a wild ride, but that's me. Here's my contact information on the screen. Feel free. I love this industry. I love this topic. So if you have questions or just want to chit chat or share ideas, brainstorm, this is how you get a hold of me. And so that's me. A little bit about Pivot. We began actually in 2004. Our founder came from, I believe he was actually at GVNW. Before deciding to go out on his own and start our firm. And I had done quite a number of research projects with Dave Newstratton before joining Pivot. But as I mentioned, many of us come from the broadband industry. We are the only agency in our industry that actually has folks that are certified in the practice of customer experience. And I think what's fun about or special about working for a full service agency is I can draw from marketing and research and web and all our different areas, including our flagship publication, Telecompetitor. It's a free publication. If you're not subscribed to it, I encourage you to do so. Great industry intel coming out multiple times during the week. and sometimes some extras breaking news happens, but it's an email newsletter and website as well, telecompetitor.com. But anyway, I can draw from all of those to help enrich the customer experience work that we're doing. Okay, so that's us. Moving on, let's just start kind of at a level set here with what is customer experience. I've already given you a hint that it's not customer service. Customer service definitely plays a huge role in customer experience, but every single one of your employees at your respective organizations play a role in forming the customer experience. If we were live in a room, I'd say, hey, shout out the answers, but we're not. So I'll just go ahead and flip right here. So customer experience is actually the sum of all experiences a customer has in their lifetime of doing business with you, the time that they have a relationship with your organization. And it's how they perceive those interactions. And so it may be seeing your trucks go down the road. It may be visiting your website. It may be when they're getting out their checkbook or getting out their credit card to pay their bill. It's when they're using your services. It's when they're picking up the phone and talking to one of your staff members, whether it's for, a service inquiry or maybe a trouble or support. All those interactions live in person, remotely, virtually, and digitally. So it's when they're seeing others talking about you on websites or Facebook pages, things like that. That is all coming together to form their perception of you, as well as, how, what their experience, how they would define their experience with you. So now that we got that important definition out of the way, I want to kind of just talk for a moment. And I do have 5 ideas that I want to share with you as far as ways that you can immediately start making an impact on customer experience. But I kind of want to set the tone first before we jump into those ideas, but just kind of a preview there. So what's at stake? Why even worry about what your customers' perceptions are of you, and B, why worry about what their experience is like? I mean, some of you may be in a situation where you're the only choice for service, or maybe you're the best. You're so obviously better choice than the competition that the experience. What does that matter? Well, it is a competitive differentiator. It is a differentiator. And quite frankly, providing a good experience is just the right thing to do. And so I ask you, who is your competition? Just think about that for a moment. And this might be actually a little bit of a trick question, because in addition, I didn't give you much time to think, but in addition to, if you're competing with a Spectrum or Starlink or DirecTV or all of those folks, your competition is also companies like Zappos and Amazon and Scheels and Chick-fil-A and Disney. Because imagine, and you do the same thing, imagine that as a customer is interacting with one of your team members, one of your employees, or they're on your website or whatever the case may be, they also are interacting with these other organizations, and they're comparing their experience, how easy it is, how simple it is, or how hard it is, how complicated it is. They're comparing all that to when they went through the takeout line at Chick-fil-A, or when they ordered 2-day shipping with Amazon, or perhaps, sat down to watch something on Amazon Prime last night for movie night, things like that. So imagine how your employees treat them and the products and services that you offer. They're together with, even though these aren't direct competitors of yours, they are affecting or impacting the impression that you're giving. They're comparing you to these other companies. So just to kind of round out this, what's at stake, I wanted to kind of run through some reasons why customer experience is important, if I haven't already made that case. So customers' expectations have changed. The pandemic was an interesting, well, it was a terrible situation, but it was an interesting thing from a company or those who are in the business of having customers, so pretty much any business situation where there was a time where expectations had to be lowered because of what we could do. We couldn't do installs, or at hotels they couldn't do cleaning services, things like that. And now that we're sort of on the other end of things, customers have started to say, hey, we have higher expectations. We're reevaluating kind of what businesses we want to do business with and what they stand for. And so figuring out what customers' expectations are and then meeting those is super important, either by asking them or doing some kind of research related to that. As I mentioned before, it's a differentiator from your competition. Frankly, competing on price, in my mind, in my years of experience on marketing, is just a race to the bottom. And so by setting apart your experience from your competition, people will choose to continue to choose you in the first place and choose to continue to do business with you. And also, when price and product or services are generally pretty equal, then CX is the most important differentiator. It's going to set you apart. But don't let me, and frankly, as I kind of said before, it's the right thing to do. Customers just deserve a good experience. It's also going to go a long way in your own employee engagement. The better experience that employees are providing to customers, the more engaged and better experience that they're having. And thus, it's kind of those two pieces are feeding each other. And so certainly a key component to helping boost employee morale and engagement by making things easier and simpler and more enjoyable. But don't let me just try and sell it to you. I got some actual stats that prove this out from a variety of industry sources. And so first off, 86% say they will pay more for a better experience. That comes from a PricewaterhouseCoopers report about the future of CX. From that same report, 60% say they would stop doing business if the interaction was unfriendly. So I ask you, I hate to ask this question. I don't hate, but it's a little bit of an uncomfortable question, but I ask you, how friendly is your team? If you are in the position of supervising others, how friendly are they? We all have a Monday from time to time. We always, we all have a moment where maybe we're not the most positive, but generally are we viewing our customers as the blood of our company, our blood, the source of why we're in existence, or are we viewing them as, oh, I got to deal with this other person, or oh, this is Martha calling for the 10th time this month. What does she want now? Is it maybe she's a little bit lonely? Or maybe we're just not meeting her needs, and that needs to be unpacked. And maybe the issue being addressed is really not addressing what's at the root of the issue. Anyway, so just want to encourage you on that.
Hey, Aaryn.
Yeah.
One of the things I've always thought about it in terms of, don't look at the customer as a problem. Look at the customer as an opportunity.
Yes.
That customer interaction, even if they are belligerent or whatever, every interaction that you have with a customer is an opportunity to solve a problem and to make that customer loyal to you. You have to approach it in the right way. So, the thing about being friendly, wow, that's huge. Just being friendly is 90% of the battle, I think. And you see so much unfriendly customer service person out there, not necessarily in telecom, but in all industries. And it immediately turns you off. You go to a restaurant and the food is amazing and the atmosphere is great, but the people you interact with there just are not friendly. They're maybe not unfriendly, but they're not friendly. It ruins the experience for you. So just thought I'd chime in.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that so much, Curtis. Resolution is such a key part of the of CX excellence. It's actually a pillar. There's 6 pillars that of CX excellence: personalization, integrity, time and effort, resolution, empathy, and I'm missing one, but I'll think of it in a minute. So yes, and resolving it can go a long way. Imagine you start off with a negative and you turn it around into a positive. Those folks are going to become raving fans. But yeah, friendly and knowledgeable seem to be to me, they're just like basic responsibilities of being an employee. And yet when I do training for clients on how to improve their experience, so often those two things, maybe knowledge more than friendliness, but still both of those come up as areas to work on. So definitely it does have a direct impact. So according to a study from Salesforce, 57% say they stopped buying when the competition offered a better experience. So you want to be the one that's attracting that 57% because your experience, people are talking about how great the experience is. And certainly retaining all those because you're offering the best experience. And that experience is not just with employees. That's very important. You know, first impression, second impression, third impression. It's with your services. And it's also with your processes. So think about, how hard is it to do business with you? How hard is it to place an order with you? Or the other way is, how easy is it to, make a payment or upgrade your service or whatever those common interactions or requests that your customers would have? How easy or hard is it? And if the answer is it could be easier or it could be simpler, those are things I would attack in 2023. I would sit around a room and brainstorm, what are the different things that people, why do they come to our website? Why do they come into the office? Why do they call us? What are those different things they're trying to get done? And let's rate them, how easy and simple and consistent they are. And those that are not rating as high as others, tackle those in 2023. So in addition, 89% say they have switched to a competitor after a poor experience. It's not just about price. It's not just about speed. It's not just about what you offer. It's not to be a broken record, but it is the experience you're delivering and the experience they're having with your services. And that comes from a Harris Interactive study. So here are my 5 ideas that I want to share with you briefly, and then we'll kind of close out with a few additional thoughts on kind of CX strategy, what that looks like. And I also want to encourage you that this is not a one and done. This is not like a check off the box, I'm done working on my customer experience. This is an ongoing effort. And it's really important to ask customers and employees. Employees are a great source of, where are things inconsistent? Where are there knowledge gaps? Where are processes either they don't exist and need to be created, or they're clunky? This industry has so many sort of hoops that we have customers jump through, and so many like layers that it's interesting to when companies start to peel back those layers and say, well, why is this? I have a client I work with in North Dakota that they were talking through why they were trying to reduce, their ultimate goal was trying to reduce the amount of time from when an order was placed to when it was installed, when construction is involved. Now, they happen to have a large service territory. They actually dip into another state. And so they were looking at a whole variety of things. But one of those things happened to do with what came to be known as the purple folders. They learned that even though orders were running through phases digitally in their system, construction would do their work and they'd hurry back that night, even if they were staying in a hotel or a motel because they were in another part of the state. They'd hurry back and they'd move it to the next stage, thinking, great, engineering can grab this the next day and get this customer installed. But engineering wasn't looking for that digital stamp there. They were waiting for the physical purple folder to come back. Well, if construction was out of town, they weren't bringing those folders back to that office until a few days later. So instead of that appointment being scheduled on a Wednesday, they weren't even being contacted to the following Monday. Years ago, the purple folders mattered, and that was just part of their process. But then when they realized, oh wow, left hand, right hand, like construction thinks that things are moving forward because they've done something in the system. Engineering is saying, hey, I got to have those folders because I don't realize that actually what I have is here in the system. They eliminated they didn't eliminate the purple folders, but they eliminated the wait time. So the purple folders still need to come back, but they're not waiting for them to physically arrive before they move on. So it's just little things like that you don't realize that are holdovers from years ago that are still in place. Anyway,
Aaryn,
so yes.
just to add to that, I know I've experienced purple folders in my life, and it is very frustrating. It's amazing, though, that we think about internal processes, including workflow management, and we think of that as an internal thing. And, we want to improve those workflows because it makes us more efficient. But what I really like about what you just mentioned is we also got to think about how that impacts the customer experience. And if we can make our workflow management more efficient, quicker, with fewer steps, it's going to make the customer service experience better. So, I think that's a great way to look at it. It's not just to make lives easier for you and your staff. It's to make things go better for your customers.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just to add to that point, if there is a process, yes, if it's not customer facing, that doesn't mean that it's still not impacting the customer. And if you could eliminate steps internally, which either speeds up the time that, the request is handled, or it frees up. Imagine, I've worked with a number of companies across the country where they're like, we need more people. And certainly I get that. I've been there myself where, thinking about needing more resources, but I've worked with a lot of them where it's like, wow, if we eliminated these steps here because they're actually not contributing anything, that frees up hours, days, turning into weeks of time, which means we can get that many more installs done, or that many more troubles done, or whatever the case may be, or process that many more service requests. So it's not always just throwing more people at it. Sometimes it's about looking at, can we get more efficient with the resources that we have? So again, not advocating that, that never to hire anyone. Certainly there's, as growth comes, there is a need for more resources, but sometimes it's there's efficiency gained by just working smarter, not harder. So the first thing I want to talk to you about as far as my 5 ideas related to customer experience is setting expectations. Sounds pretty, what you would expect, not too earth-shattering there. But I want to encourage you to think about every time you or your colleagues are talking to a customer, are you setting an expectation? Is there a hesitation to set an expectation in case you don't meet it? I can promise you that not setting an expectation, there's still an expectation being set. The customer is filling in the blank. And that's worse than not setting the expectation or missing. That's worse than missing the expectation. Far better to set the expectation, explain what the situation may be, even if you anticipate, hey, because this storm is coming in and it's going to, it's going to be a whammy, it's going to hit us. I think we can do this, but we could be affected by this storm. I'll keep you posted. I'll update you if this time that we're going to be there needs to change because of, Mother Nature or whatever. Far better to set expectations and circle back and explain, hey, we need to change this, than to not set them, because the customer is going to come up with their own. And more than likely, they're going to come up with an expectation that you're not able to meet. And frankly, expectations, as I mentioned before, are higher today, and people talk. So when those expectations are met, or those expectations that they came up with are not met, rather, they're going to talk about that. And it's probably something you didn't even know, that was expected of you. I also think it's important. So I just want to encourage you to don't let customers fill in the blanks. And expectations are set from a variety of sources. And so people come to you with already preconceived notions. They've seen things on social media. They've talked to friends and neighbors, family members. They're seeing your marketing out in the world. They're seeing your billboard or your bill insert or postcard or whatever. So it's really important to make sure that what the marketing messaging you're putting out there is on saying what it is that you can truly deliver. And then they're also forming their expectations by how other companies are serving them. And so just setting those expectations are so important. And then if there's something out of your control or something that comes up, equipment malfunction or a delay or Mother Nature, it's super important to circle back. And people will be, if you proactively reach out to them and say, hey, this is the reason why this needs to change, they will be far more understanding of that. It's when there's no communication or not enough communication that people get frustrated. So and with each of these 5 ideas, I'll kind of throw some thoughts out there and then give you a couple questions for you to pose internally. And so the 2 questions related to expectations are, what that I want you to take back as homework and think about is, what is an expectation your company falls short on? And then how should you handle a situation where an expectation you set is not going to be met? Do you have a process in place? Do you have access to customer records and an ability to reach out and call them? And of course you have access to their records, but do the right people have the right access in order to, when they see that there's a situation, that they can act on it and reach out and communicate? As far as, closing out this thought about expectations, I'll leave you with this thought before we go on to the next idea is, when you see this picture, what do you think the customer is thinking when they see equipment like this on their road? For those of you who might be installing new network, new fiber or other means of delivery, do you think that when they look at that, they think, oh, goody, I'm getting service tomorrow, or some other not reasonable expectation that they probably, having been talked to a lot of crews that are in trucks and operating equipment like this, there's probably some neighbors that are stopping saying, hey, what are you doing here? When can I get service? Am I getting service, next week? When it might actually be months, because they're actually putting in a trunk line, they're putting in a main line in order to connect in a neighborhood or an area, but they're not actually putting the drops into the different homes yet. Great example where these folks out in the field need to be ready with some talking points, not scripted, but just some ability to talk to those neighbors stopping by, saying, hey, yeah, this is where we're at, this is what's happening next, and this is what you can do to get service. So I just want to encourage you to think about when a truck is out there doing work, that it's forming certain expectations, and good to get out ahead of that and explain, even if it's before the truck is on that road, sending a communication to that area saying, you're going to see this and this is what it means, or sending a video describing that, things like that. Okay, so even though I'm doing a lot of talking, so I feel funny like saying this, but in a different context, certainly important to, when you're engaging with a customer or another employee, because keep in mind, customer experience is also, even if you're not customer facing, not only is the work that you're doing affecting the customer, as we talked about earlier, But your customer is that other employee, the person taking the baton from you to move the project forward. Or maybe they're coming to you because they need some information or they need some equipment or whatever. They're your customer at that moment. And so I encourage you to talk less and listen more. And really exercise that muscle. I call it a muscle of empathy. And empathy is not the same as sympathy. It's not feeling sorry for someone. It's actually putting yourself in someone's shoes, seeing things from their perspective. It's also not meaning that you have to agree with their perspective, but it'll help you understand their situation if you see things through their eyes, from their perspective. And I encourage you in that case to ask questions. Use all that's available to you to try to either, if it's an angry situation, diffuse it. If it's a, tense situation, or, maybe even they're super excited and you have to let them down saying, oh, it's actually going to be another month. It's using those verbal and nonverbal cues in order to kind of figure out how to approach the situation. Oftentimes, when it's an upset customer, this doesn't completely fix the situation, but I can promise you this will go a long way. They just want to be heard. They want to know that you value them, and they just want to be listened to. And yes, I'm not one to, or I should say, no, I don't want to advocate that you should just sit there and be berated. But sometimes sort of your calmness can help diffuse the situation and kind of carry over and influence them to then take a step back and start to be more calm. As far as empathy goes, there's two questions I want to have you think about and ask yourself. So how can empathy help you serve customers better? So putting yourself in their shoes, how can you serve them better as a company or individually in your role? And what are some ways that you can demonstrate empathy? How can you show them that you're seeing things from their perspective? Saying things like, I understand where you're coming from, or I hear what you're saying. Those kind of verbal cues to say, you know what, I'm listening to you. I hear you, I value you. And 70% of buying experiences are based on how a customer feels they are treated. So 70% of that interaction is about emotion, how they feel about how things went. Not what you did, not what you said, but how you made them feel. There's actually a quote I'll share a little bit later that's one of my favorites from Maya Angelou that gets to the heart of that. But moving on to idea number 3. In your role, I be the helper to this little mouse and remove the maze walls, perhaps. Look for those opportunities to remove obstacles. And show customers, I kind of said it earlier, but look at those processes, look at those common interactions, write them down on a whiteboard for 2023. What are those different things? What are the paths that people take on your website when they come into the office, all those different things? What are they doing, and how many steps does it take to get there? Or on the website, how many clicks does it take to get that bill paid, or to change service, or whatever, or to learn how to do something, how to use your services? Are there opportunities to make things easier, make things simpler? That time and effort that they invest, the less time that they have to invest, the less effort that they have to put forward, the less brain power that they have to put forward, the less physical effort that they have to put into getting something done, the more enjoyable the experience. Kind of an obvious point there, but just think about, are there hoops that we make either each other, internally jump through, or customers jump through that really aren't necessary. And so moving on with that kind of thought, here are just two questions or three questions, excuse me, that I'd encourage you to ask internally and yourself. How many steps does it take to order service and get it installed? Just take a moment, and not right now, but in a room brainstorming, let's write it down. What are all the different steps that it takes, both internally and externally? Just put it on a board and then start picking it apart. Is there duplication? Is there where there's a handoff to another team and then that team hands it back to you? Is that efficient? Is there wasted effort either by the customer or by employees? Are there extra steps that you're doing that really aren't necessary? So just taking it honest with candor, looking at these different steps to actually get service ordered and installed. What you might also find as you lay out those steps is maybe there's some steps that are missing. Things like super common when I work with clients, how many of them don't have either confirmation of an installation appointment or a reminder of that appointment. And then you show up and the customer's not there because maybe it was an appointment that was scheduled for 3 weeks from now and they forgot about it because there was no reminder. So just those little things. So it might actually be a case of adding some steps or communication points to make it more efficient in the long run. What are some other processes that require multiple steps, and do the same kind of thing where you kind of lay out what are those steps, where's the wasted or duplication, where's the handoffs that maybe does that handoff need to happen, or can it be more efficient, more effective? Or perhaps the handoff happens, but in a later stage so that it doesn't have to be handed back, things like that. And just ask yourself in day-to-day, what's something you could simplify for a customer or a fellow employee? On the trouble or support end of things, here's an illustration of where that effort and that time gets wasted. And this comes from a J.D. Power U.S. Telecom Home Service Technician study. And so just 26% of customers say issues were not fixed on the first technician visit. Imagine how many truck rolls could be eliminated if that 26% was knocked down to 1 or 2%. I realize there's going to be times where you have to revisit, or maybe the issue just is intermittent and it pops up. Certainly I've experienced that here with my home office setup, had to have my provider come out a couple times trying to get a VoIP phone to work with my connection. And first visit, we couldn't replicate what the issue was. And second visit, more so we're able to address that. Those customers that don't get their problem fixed the first time, and again, these are your types of customers. This isn't, people doing business with Chick-fil-A or Zappos. This is telecom. Those customers are twice as likely to switch providers than those where the issue was fixed right the first time. So that's the risk. And this probably isn't a surprise that those who get it fixed the first time are more satisfied than those who need another visit. But just to put some context into it, overall satisfaction is 112 points higher when issues are fixed the first time. So as it relates to time and effort, two things. One, if you've got to go back out there a second time, or it's not resolved right the first time, that's more time and effort on your part. It's more time and effort on the customer's part. Second point I want to make here is, imagine if we could even use our systems in order to eliminate the need for the customer to even have us come out in the first place. Imagine, and I know this exists, it's just putting the processes in place to make this happen, where you can anticipate, hey, you know what? I see that there's an alert on this account where where they're having, lots of dropped calls if it's a phone situation, or lots of speed variation or whatever. What's going on here? Let's try, and so that you're actually fixing it before they even know they have a problem. Imagine the time and effort that they wouldn't have to extend. So I encourage you to think about those ways to try to eliminate even the need for a customer to call in the first place. Is there data that you have in place, and thus and then a process in place to use that data in order to eliminate problems before the customer even knows they're a problem? Which leads me to my next point, number 4, which is leveraging data. This can be different types of data, certainly, but it's using data about your individual customers as well as a whole in order to offer better solutions. So if a customer's calling in and you can see that they need to be right-sized with their speed tier, then having that information available to say, it looks like with as many devices as you have connecting and what you're doing using the internet for, this plan would actually fit your needs better. 9 times out of 10, they may not even realize that that's the problem, or they may not even realize that how they're using that there is another plan that they could choose. And I also encourage you, this goes back to that knowledge piece, to be hungry for learning and instill that in others. So if there's something you don't know, don't be embarrassed, ask. I can promise you the one who does know it and imparts the knowledge to you is going to appreciate. They're not going to think, this dummy, why are they asking that? They should know that. They're going to think, I'm teaching someone something, and that's cool. And be proactive, whether that's proactive on an individual customer perspective, using that data to see that they're having issues, or proactive in a portion of your network. Looking at, hey, is it time for us to offer multi-gig? I can remember not that long ago, we all in the industry were like, no one's going to use a gig. Well, I can tell you there's a lot of people who are. And now, multi-gig is the next thing as we rely more and more on the internet. So knowledge is such a key piece to this. And so I just want to leave you with these questions on this one, which is, what sources of data do you have about your customers that you could actually use? What questions can you ask them to help serve them better? I was working with a client in Tennessee, and we were brainstorming some ways to improve the experience. And an engineer said to a customer service rep, well, when you ask them if they work from home, do you ask them if they connect via a VPN? And the customer service rep said, no, I just ask them if they work from home, and then I offer a plan. And he said, well, if you ask them if they connect via a VPN, we actually will install things, and I don't know what they do, so you probably do, but we would actually set up the install a little bit differently. So having that information would be helpful. And so now I can promise you that customer service rep and that sense in that company has been disseminated to all the customer service reps, that if the answer to the do you work from home is yes, they're following up with a second question. And that's because that engineer took the time to share his knowledge and share why that was important and why it mattered to the customer. So what are some of those kind of questions that you can ask to serve them better, either during the actual placing an order or handling an upgrade, or maybe there during the installation or during a trouble? And then this is a great goal to set for 2023. What's something you don't know? Name it and then learn it. So just one final point about that knowledge piece. 46% say that they will walk away from a transaction if the employee is not knowledgeable. And, knowledge seems to be taken for granted, but we shouldn't make that assumption that everybody knows everything. Oftentimes in our training, we'll ask, how fast is a gig? And we don't ask people to share because we don't want to embarrass anyone, but it's interesting to see folks that are in our industry that don't know, exactly that's 1,000 megabits per second. Of course, the other
don't know
side,
what a megabit is.
that's true. That's true. And the
Well,
other side of that coin, the other side of that coin is, why does that even matter? How fast that is, and
right.
also what does that speed mean? It means let's put it in layman's terms it means it takes 2 seconds to download this as opposed to 20 minutes or, different things like that.
I hear a lot of people confuse megabits and megabytes.
Yes.
Which won't matter to 90% of the people out there, but you're going to get that one person who understands the difference. And if you use the wrong term, they're going to just roll your eyes at you and say, this person doesn't know
Yes.
what the heck they're doing. They're just repeating what somebody said and they're getting it wrong.
Yes. It's early in the morning here in North Carolina. I did say bits, right? And not bytes.
You did.
Okay, good.
I was listening.
So my last idea for you is making an impression. I don't know if this artist or author will ring any bells for some of you, but this is one of my favorite. Sandra Boynton, it's one of my favorite illustrators, and she writes books and cartoons and things like that. So anyway, just a little fun side thing there, but she has a thing that says, don't let the turkeys get you down. It's one of my favorites. But make an impression. So memory is tied to emotion. I talked earlier about how you leave someone feeling can make more of an impression than what you did or what you said. That's because that feeling has a direct correlation or direct tie to memory. And so if the situation left you feeling angry, you're going to remember that more. If it left you feeling, just okay, so whatever, then you're going to remember it less. If it left you feeling like, wow, they really care about me and they went above and beyond to help me out, they're going to remember that and they're going to talk about it. And so how you make someone feel in that interaction, that you're making them feel valued and appreciated, it's going to deepen that memory and it's going to get what we're looking for, which is word of mouth, spread of word of mouth in a positive way. So questions I would challenge you to ask yourself as you're thinking about, how to make the experience memorable, how to leave a lasting impression is, what would customers say about your company today? Maybe get back in that room for 2023 and write it down. What do you think they'd say? And then pick apart those, find those opportunities where you change maybe some negative language to positive. What are some things? Why is it that they're saying this? And what can you do about it? And then what's something you can do to make an impression? It could be as simple as a follow-up thank you card after someone places an order that's personally written, or as simple as having dog treats. Now there's a caveat to that. One moment. Having some dog treats in your technicians' trucks. Now the caveat is asking permission first, of course, because we don't know, some of these pets have special diets, but being there and saying, hey, I have these dog biscuits, this brand, may I give your dog one of these biscuits?
Make sure they're gluten-free. You don't want to get somebody mad at you.
Yes, that's what I mean. Ask permission first, but
is your dog a vegan?
Exactly. Yeah. And then good luck with that. And then what is an example where an employee made an impression on you, maybe at another company or within your own company, and think about how it made you feel. And think about, is there something you could do? Is there something you could learn from that you could take that and in your specific role, kind of try to replicate what they did for you for others. And so this is that quote I alluded to that is my favorite, which is, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that's from the poet Maya Angelou. Anyone hear that before?
I actually have heard that before, but not putting it in this context, and that really that really makes a lot of sense.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as we wind down here, I just want to leave you with two final thoughts. There are elements of CX strategy that are so important to help you really roundabout. And I hope these 5 ideas are just things that you can implement in your own role, within your own departments, across your organization, just give you some things to think about. But I think the idea is to look for those ways to be consistent, gain efficiency, reimagine the workflow, look at those processes and say, maybe we need to do this in a different order, or maybe we need to eliminate these steps, or maybe if we added in this one step, it would make the rest of this go that much better. Look for those opportunities to tear down silos, talk to each other. It might be that customer service is gathering a bunch of information, putting it here, and technicians don't even know it's there, so they don't have that valuable information that's been gathered because they don't even know where to look. And customer service is saying, well, I told you this, and technicians are saying, no, you didn't. So just those opportunities to across where there's processes that come across different areas of the company, get together and talk about, is there a way to reorganize this or share information? And then just look for those opportunities to build relationships one-on-one with customers and build that loyalty. So just as that final thought, real quick here, I just want to pop up a screen that shows the 7 components of a CX strategy, which is creating a CX team that's drawing from different members across the organization, assessing your customer experience, mapping out what customer, the different touch points that customers have with you, purposefully designing that experience, teaching what that experience is going to be, having metrics in place such as net promoter score and customer satisfaction and other performance metrics. Maybe if it takes a long time to from placing an order to service being installed, measure what the average is today, so that you can see that changes that you're making actually has an impact on reducing that average. Important to start off with, before you make a change, figure out what it is you need to measure to see that change actually has an impact. And then having employee accountability, having standards in place and coaching. So that's that. I will just leave you briefly with, I'll just pop back my screen with my contact info here in case you want to jot that down and ask me any questions. I know I didn't leave you with much time, but thank you for investing today.
Believe it or not, Aaryn, we have no hard stop on this. We just aimed for an hour, and sometimes we overshoot our hour, and that's okay. So there is no restriction on time. So if anybody does have a question, this is a great time to chime in. If you want to just unmute yourself, go ahead and do that, and you can ask your question. And feel free to interrupt me because I have a question, and I'd rather hear your question than my own question. Aaryn, you mentioned the Net Promoter Score.
Yes.
So that's a commonly used way to evaluate customer satisfaction. What's your opinion on the accuracy of that? And is a Net Promoter Score based on a customer's history with that company that they're evaluating, or is it primarily about their most recent experience?
I think it depends on when you ask the question. So if you, so kind of to bring and level set, make sure everyone's on the same page as what it's measuring. So it's that question of how likely are you to, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this company, recommend Pivot, to friends and family?
10. Sorry.
All right, thanks. Awesome, great. And then there's a calculation where those who give 0 to 6s are considered detractors. And I'll tell you what that means in just a moment. Those who give 7s and 8s are considered passive. And then 9s and 10s, that's what we're shooting for, are promoters. And so those are the folks that are actively recommending you and saying positive things about your company within the community, within their circle of influence, their community. Passives, they're kind of on the cusp, but they're not necessarily out there bad mouthing you, but they're also not out there saying good things. There's always that theory of those who, oh, I never give a 9 or 10. I only give an 8 and nothing more.
Yeah.
But generally, those are folks that they could be wooed by the competition. If they see that, oh, wow, they have a better experience over here. Those 0 to 6s are the ones you really need to worry about, because they're unhappy about something. And as far as your question about whether or not, like how they're influenced when they're answering it, I do think it very much depends on when the question is being asked. If you're doing a mass all customer research project where you're asking all of them that question, there's going to be a ton of people who haven't interacted with you lately. And so they're probably going to base it more on those distant, the sum of their memories of past, versus if after an install, like that same day, you're asking that question, they're going to answer it in relation to that interaction.
Yeah.
Or after a trouble, or after placing an order, or after, so that timing is very much an impact on what it is they're drawing from to answer that question.
Well, I know there are companies that will survey customers right after, say, an install or an upgrade or anything like that.
Yes.
And then there are other companies that annually survey their customers, or every 2 years, it just depends on them. And so those numbers might look different according to, so it might be hard to compare the Net Promoter Score on those instant surveys to the Net Promoter Score on the annual or biannual surveys.
100%. That's a good distinction. And our Voice of the Customer research platform, we do a survey after installs and after troubles. And so we know that how they're answering is much more directly tied to that install or that trouble or whatever, especially because then we're asking questions about what could have gone better in this situation. And you're right, they aren't apples to apples. Here at Pivot, we do an annual client survey for our reoccurring clients. And then we do a survey right after we build a website, or right after we create a new brand, or there's a series of different projects, right after a research project. And we know that those numbers, we look at them together just to see what's going on, but we know that those research after the post-project survey results for research are very much tied to that specific research project versus their overall impression of us, which is that overall impression is drawing from different different things we've worked on with them. And so, yes, both are very important. And I do think there's great value if you're looking to see how can we install and trouble are two critical moments in a customer's journey. First impression on the install side, and something has gone wrong. We need to resolve it on the trouble side. And maybe the trouble is just, they don't understand how to use something, but still something is not working how they want it to be working. And so those two critical moments, super important to get people's thoughts on, their experience and address that. So I would say, like, if you had to choose, I'd start there. If you had to choose between research projects.
And, if someone has a less than 9 or 10 on an individual interaction, say an install, that does not necessarily mean that 6 months or a year later, they're going to give you a negative review or a negative Net Promoter Score. What I think is interesting is one of those less than perfect or less than stellar reviews of an instantaneous action gives you, the provider, the opportunity to fix it. And sometimes fixing a problem that you caused gives you more credit than doing it right the first time. And, I always like to say that, the difference between a great provider in any industry and a mediocre one is the great providers know that and tell customers that we aren't perfect, but we will make it right for you. And making it right, sometimes you get as much or more credit than doing it right the first time. So.
Yeah, you're
Well, we
getting
should
that.
all try to do it right the first time, right?
Of course, of course. But I think it is giving you a second chance. And
Yeah.
I think and sometimes it's not something caused by you. Client was telling a technician was telling me it was a security system was giving me this story about how it ended up being they gave a poor score. And so it was routed to him because he was the one installing that security system and said, hey man, you got to address this. And so he did. Well, turns out what it was is one spouse was there for the installation, got the lesson on how to do things. The other spouse was not there for it. Unfortunately, spouse number one didn't share with spouse number two how to use things or whatever. So the second, the spouse filling out the survey was not happy and pleased. And
Yeah.
but when he took the time to explain things, she was like, oh, light bulb. Okay, yeah, no, this is understandable. And so it's that second chance. And in that case, it was not really his fault or something he did or did not do. Although, is it an opportunity where he could have left behind something? Sure. I think he actually did. But it wasn't shared with her or whatever. But anyway, so yeah, definitely second opportunity for second chance. That's one of the reasons why I'm such a big advocate for surveying after installs and troubles, because they're not only critical moments, but also because it's a chance for a second chance.
Absolutely. And if you don't ask those questions, you don't know, you don't know. That customer could just sit there and stew.
Yeah.
And then give you a 5 when the Net Promoter Score survey comes out at the end of the year.
Right. Another way to head that off is at the end of a transaction, just asking, and I'm not scripting anyone. You can phrase it how it's natural to you, but getting across, have I met your expectations? Have your needs been met? Do you have any other questions? What else can I do for you? Those kind of questions to help to ensure that they're not leaving. It's probably not as extreme as doctor's offices, but they say before you go to a doctor's office, write down your questions, because when you get in there, you get the white coat syndrome where you're like, you go mute.
So true.
I think we can get so talking about everything that the customer is just on the phone or in person, just like, okay, and not asking. And then 20 minutes later, they're like, oh, I should have asked this question. Yeah. So just providing kind of trying to provide those opportunities to make it more comfortable to ask questions.
Yeah, great. All right. Speaking of asking questions, it's your turn. If anyone does have a question or comment you'd like to make, even if you'd like to share a story, I think sometimes we learn a lot just by sharing stories. If you've had a customer experience interaction that was really positive or really negative, whether it was broadband or not, great opportunity to share that. I've got one that I can share about on a broadband basis. I had a service installed here. Oh gosh, it's been 3 or 4 years ago. And the technician that came out I tried to do troubleshooting on the phone, and the people who were doing the help desk were not helping because they couldn't get it through their heads that I was not being served by DSL. I was being served by fiber. And so they kept saying things like, can you check your modem and see if, well, there is no modem. There's no such thing as a modem in a DSL. Do you mean the ONT? Well, what's an ONT? I knew more about it than they did. Anyway, they finally sent a technician out, and this guy was amazing. He walked me through the process. He, showed me what was going on. He showed me the reason why the service was not good. There was a fiber jumper that had actually been pinched inside the enclosure. And that was attenuating the signal to the point where I was not getting very good throughput and a lot of latency. He explained all that. He did a great job. And so I made sure he understood how much I appreciated that. And I was, kind of glowing with praise. And he was like, it's really, thank you. I appreciate you being so complimentary or whatever. We just don't get enough of that when we're out doing work. And I go, well, it's a top-down process, right? You did a great job, and I appreciate you, but I'm still not real happy about your phone support people and the fact that they couldn't even understand what I was trying to tell them. So there's my own little personal broadband experience.
the fact that he not only took the time, because I think that that shows that he valued you as an individual and wanted to help explain things, but the fact that he had the knowledge, I think that's
Yeah.
something
Oh,
else.
definitely. Yeah.
There are companies out there that have over processed their situation, where they've brought on, and part of it is manpower, or
Right.
resource, being able to hire enough people. And but there are some that have so over processed it that they've run too far away. They've kind of put themselves in a situation where they're not allowing their employees to think. They're just telling them what to do.
The script.
And so
you get it whenever a lot of times, and again, I'm not just talking broadband here, you get the script and it's a script, and you try to get them to go off the script and just answer your question, but they've not been taught that they can go off the script, so they don't.
Right. Or they may not be armed with the knowledge in order to go off that script. And
that's
so
very true. Yeah.
Want to, caution against that danger of super important to provide people with the tools and encourage that free thinking, within reason. You're not going to necessarily say, tell them they can have the whole company or have the service for 5 years or whatever. But I think trust with employees but arming them with the resources and knowledge is they'll earn that trust.
Right. All right. One last call for any questions, because honestly, Aaryn, I could pick your brain all day. And I won't do that because we appreciate your time and everybody else's. But just a reminder that we're recording, and this is the recording we'll be playing back at 1 o'clock. So if you're watching this at 1 o'clock, hi. Aaryn, can you put your contact information back up one more time? I just want to make sure people have opportunity to see that.
Absolutely. Yep. Feel free to, if you think of a customer, hopefully I didn't cause white coat syndrome, in the doctor's office syndrome, but I know in a situation like this, it's, not always fun to ask a question, or you'll think of it later. But yes, please reach out. Would welcome an email or a phone call.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of customer experience, you've presented a good customer experience for all of us here today in your training. So we greatly appreciate you. And thank you to everybody who's been on the webinar today. And we hope you all have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And for those of you who are going to be on our other trainings, remember, Basic Pond Design is next Wednesday. Go to Iowa Heartland SCTE.org to sign up. Thank you all and have a great day.